Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Apocalypse Z, Book 3 by Baileigh Higgins, narrated by Kristin James. Chapter 1. Tara. Tara paced up and down the length of the hallway, her strides long and swift. Whenever she reached the end, she'd pivot around and repeat the procedure. The rubber soles of her boots squeaked with every turn, accompanied by the swish of her long coat. At the end of the hall waited a closed door flanked by two soldiers, their expressions blank and emotionless. For a moment, she considered talking to them again, but one look at their cold faces deterred her. They hadn't listened to her so far. Why would they start now? With a sigh, she dropped onto a nearby wooden bench, picking at her jeans with nervous tension. She had no choice but to wait, so wait she did. A clock on the wall ticked down the minutes, brightly lit by the fluorescent bulbs that ran along the ceiling. After 43 minutes, the door opened and a trio of men exited the room beyond. All three were junior officers, dressed in full combat gear and armed to the teeth. Neither acknowledged her beyond a curt nod. She'd have thought them rude if her keen gaze didn't detect the exhaustion evident in the lines around their eyes and mouths. They're overworked, tired and stressed. It meshed with the little she'd seen of the fort so far. The once mighty base was a shadow of its former self, running on skeleton staff and backup generators. Supplies were scarce, morale low, and no one was willing to talk. A week had passed since she first arrived with Saul, Dylan, and Ethan. A week during which all her hopes and dreams had been shattered. Her thoughts wandered back to that night, and she could still remember the excitement that fizzed through her veins, the certainty she'd felt knowing they'd arrived. That was all gone now. Instead, upon hearing that Saul and Dylan were survivors of the Vita virus, the major in charge of the base had tossed them each into a cell. He called it quarantine. She called it imprisonment. Her research and the remaining 3 vials of the cure were confiscated, and she confined to a small room with little freedom. Ethan was taken to the infirmary and put to work treating patients, and she hadn't seen any of them since.
"Dr. Lee, you may enter now,"
a stern voice announced, dragging her from her thoughts. She jumped up and walked over until she came face to face with a tall man in his mid-40s. They shook hands, and she said, "Thank you for seeing me again, Major Reed."
"Come inside,"
he answered, closing the door behind her. Tara cast her eyes around the Major's office, taking in every detail. This was the 3rd time they met, but the first time she'd been allowed inside his inner sanctum. The room was Spartan, containing little more than a desk, a couple of chairs, and filing cabinets. A map filled with colored pens and post-its covered one wall. It was the kind of room she'd expect of a man with little patience for frivolity and waste. A practical man. Thus far, all of her efforts to convince Major Owen Reed to assist her in her mission had failed. Hopefully, this time he'd listen. The Major stepped behind his desk and waved her to a chair.
"How can I help you, Dr. Lee?"
"You already know why I'm here, Major," Tara said, studying his appearance. Like his men, he looked tired. Deep grooves lined his tanned face, and his dark hair, cropped short, showed signs of silver at the temples.
"I do, and I cannot fulfill your request. I've told you so already. Yet here you are, wasting my time again," he answered in brisk tones. "Your friends will remain in quarantine until I'm 100% certain they don't pose a risk to my men."
"I assure you they're not a threat, Major. I can vouch for that," Tara said.
"Tell that to your friend, Miss Young. Twice already she's displayed unreasonable fits of anger. She's difficult to handle and hostile."
"You mean Dylan?" Tara asked.
"Yes, Dylan. We quizzed her on her background. Did you know she was in juvenile detention for most of her teen years?
No, I didn't, Tara admitted.
Then it seems you don't know Miss Young as well as you thought you did, Major Reed said. And now she's refusing to cooperate.
Do you blame her? We barely got here, and you tossed her into prison.
Quarantine.
Call it what you like. That doesn't change the facts, Tara said, secretly cursing Dylan for making things even worse. Can't she behave just once in her life?
Be that as it may, she's dangerous, the Major replied with a stubborn set to his jaw.
Tara rolled her eyes. She's not dangerous, just rebellious. It's got nothing to do with the virus or the cure, I promise.
I don't know you, Dr. Lee, so your assurances mean nothing to me, Major Reed said.
I'm an employee of Usamarid, a research scientist with years of experience both in-house and out in the field, Tara protested. I know what I'm talking about.
I'm aware of your status, Dr. Lee, the Major said, stressing the word doctor in a manner that made it clear he didn't trust her. Unfortunately, I have no way of vetting your so-called credentials.
Surely there has to be someone who can speak for me. Records? Anything? Tara said. Where are all the scientists?
The lab is gone, I'm afraid, Major Reed said.
Gone? What do you mean, gone? Tara asked, aghast.
Someone on the inside was infected. Despite all our precautions, this person managed to hide his condition until it was too late. He turned on his colleagues, and within minutes the place was overrun.
How is that even possible?
You tell me, Doctor. You're the scientist here. Anyway, there's no one left to vouch for you. All the records are sealed inside the lab, along with 100+ zombies.
When did this happen?
A couple of days ago, Major Reed replied.
Can't you clear the building? Tara asked, her desperation rising with each passing second. I need the facility to study the virus and produce more of the cure.
Major Reed sighed. Dr. Lee, the situation here is not what you seem to think it is. Much has changed since the outbreak.
I'm aware of that, Tara said. But the mere fact that you're still operational...
It means nothing, Doctor. We are holding on by a thread here. I have several thousand civilians living on this base. The families of resident officers and refugees like yourself. They all need to be fed, clothed, and protected. Every day, more of my men die defending these walls. Every day, we have fewer supplies to feed us. Washington has gone dark, as has most of the other military installations and bases. The government is MIA, and I am the highest-ranking officer left on these grounds. What exactly do you want from me?
I want you to get off your ass and help me, Tara cried. Don't you understand? I'm the only chance you've got. If the situation is truly as dire as you say it is, then you need me. Unless you want to die just like all the rest. She jumped up and paced the room, laying out the facts as she saw them. The zombies aren't going away. They don't rot like normal corpses. Plus, they're drawn to movement and sound. Given a chance, they swarm into groups that number in the thousands. That's what happened to Fort Knox. She turned toward the Major, pleading with him. Imagine what you could do if a bite from a zombie was no longer a death sentence. If I could cure any of your injured men before they turned. What if I could produce a vaccine? Get me inside that lab, and I promise you that we can turn things around. There's still time.
I cannot risk the lives of the few men I've got left to secure that facility, Doctor. I need them to protect the fence. We've got kids here, women, old folk. My first responsibility lies with them.
And mine lies with the world, humanity as a whole.
You're being unreasonable. It cannot be done, not with the number of men I have at my disposal.
Tara stared at the Major with gritted teeth. She wanted to shake him until he understood exactly how vital her mission was. Didn't he get it? The entire human race was at stake. Suddenly, a thought occurred to her, one so wild she almost dismissed it out of hand. But her back was up against the wall, and she could see no other way out. "What if we do it for you?"
"What do you mean?" the Major asked, taken aback.
"Let my friends go. Arm us," Tara said. "Give us what we need, and we'll clear out the lab ourselves. Except for Ethan, Dr. Hayes. He's not a fighter."
"And you are?"
Tara lifted her chin. "Saul taught me a couple of things. I can handle myself."
3 people against 100 zombies? I may not know you, Doctor, but I didn't take you for the comedic type.
He pushed back his chair and stood up.
"Once again, you're wasting my time."
"Please, Major," Tara cried. "What have you got to lose? 3 people you don't trust. 3 fewer mouths to feed." The Major hesitated, his eyes narrowed.
"It's too risky."
"No, it isn't. The only risk lies with us. If we can't do it, you're still in the same position you were before," Tara said. "However, if we succeed, you'll have your lab back, and your men will have an edge in the fight to come."
"A cure doesn't guarantee we'll win," Major Reed said. "Nor does a vaccine."
"No, it doesn't. But it's more than you have at the moment," Tara said. "It's more than anyone does." Major Reed leaned on his desk with both hands, thinking it over. At the same time, a knock on the door interrupted them, and he looked up.
"Come in."
"Sir, zombies are attacking the Veterans Gate," a soldier said upon entering the office. A radio crackled at his side, and he had a wild look in his eyes.
"How many?"
"Dozens, more than King and his unit can handle. They're asking for reinforcements." Major Reed slammed his fist onto the desk. A pile of files toppled over and fell onto the floor with the impact.
"Great. Just what we need. Another attack. Send in one of the reserve units."
"Yes, sir,"
the soldier answered.
After a quick salute, he grabbed the radio and raised it to his lips. Shouting out commands, he dashed away, leaving Tara alone with the Major once more. She realized that they faced an opportunity to gain the commander's trust and turned toward him. "Let us help them fight the infected," she said. "Allow us to prove ourselves to you." The Major eyed her with disfavor.
"Are you still here?"
"Yes, and I'm not going away. I'm offering assistance." "Take it," Tara said, lifting her chin and meeting his gaze with hers.
"It's not my habit to send civilians into combat," the Major said.
"These aren't normal circumstances. It will give us a chance to prove to you that we can fight. Besides, it seems to me that you can use all the help you can get." The Major sighed.
"Fine. I'll send you to the fences for the night. If your friends can do even half of what you say, my men won't be needed anymore and can retire in comfort."
"And afterward?" Tara pressed.
"What about it?"
"Will you allow us to clear out the lab?" Tara asked. "And will you let me continue my research if we do?"
"I'll think about it,"
he said with a frown, and she realized it was the most she'd get out of him at that moment. It was better than nothing, though, and she stuck out her hand. "We've got a deal." They shook on it, and he called one of the guards to escort her and her friends to the armory and contact points. After giving the instructions, he turned toward her.
"Godspeed, Dr. Lee."
"Thank you, Major. You won't regret this," Tara answered, moving toward the door.
"I'm already sorry, but you've got a way of persuading people," Major Reed said. "A gift."
"If that were true, we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place, Major," Tara replied before stepping outside. She left behind a puzzled-looking commander. He couldn't know what her words meant, of course, but she'd never forget her superior, Dr. Bannock. Nor could she forget the way she'd failed to convince him to take the Vita virus seriously. They'd lost valuable time because of that failure, allowing the disease to mutate and spread. The fault for the outbreak lay on their shoulders. His for ignoring her warnings, hers for not trusting her gut and going over his head. It weighed on Tara every day, driving her ever onward with her mission. It was her way of repenting for her mistake. But when it came to Dr. Bannock, if I ever see that man again, I'll shove the virus down his throat and watch him turn. Maybe then he'll believe me. Chapter 2. Dylan. Dylan paced up and down her cell with her hands clenched behind her back. It wasn't hard. It only took 3 steps to cover the entire length of her prison from front to end. Beneath her breath, she counted each step. 812, 813, 814. Each time she reached 1,000, she'd start over. She'd lost count of the times she'd started over. Her temper simmered just below the boiling point, and she was afraid it would explode at any moment. The first time it happened, she attacked a guard. The second time, she smashed the barred window and shredded her mattress with a shard of glass. All out of pure frustration. After that, they'd transferred her to a windowless cell, and she only got fed once a day through a tiny slot. Who knew what they'd do to her if she screwed up again? Give her the electric chair, maybe. Either way, death was starting to look like an attractive option. Without the sun, moon, or stars, time had no meaning. The lights were on day and night. The guards changed at the same hour. Dinner arrived like clockwork, and she never saw or spoke to anyone except the hand that pushed her food through the slot. She missed Ethan and Tara, even Saul, and she hoped they were all okay. What about Amy and Alex? Her mind was coming unhinged. She knew it. The guards knew it, too. Especially when she threw herself at the door like a maniac. Or sang karaoke songs in the tiny shower cubicle. Saul probably had it easy compared to her. A big cell with lots of sun, 3 meals per day, and a bathtub with real soap and shampoo. The man was the picture of calm when he needed to be. He probably meditates, too, Dylan mumbled to herself as she flopped down onto her bunk. The springs protested at the abuse, and one dug into her ribs. She wriggled around until she found a more comfortable spot and stared at the ceiling. One hand traced across the scar on her forearm. It had healed up, and the stitches had been removed by a nurse who refused to talk to her. The nurse had also given her a full examination before pronouncing her healthy. It was the only perk to being imprisoned. For the first time in weeks, there was nothing wrong with her. No injuries, bumps, bruises, or wounds graced her form. She got regular meals, enough water, and too much sleep. Ugh, sleep. With a sigh, Dylan rolled onto her side, resigned to another night spent tossing and turning. With the return of her health and energy, she hated being forced to do nothing. It brought out the worst in her, and she wondered how much longer she could keep from going insane. When the door to her cell suddenly opened, she was out of the bed in a flash. "Who's there?" "It's me, Tara." "Tara?" Relief flooded Dylan's veins. "What are you doing here? Are they letting me out?" "Temporarily," Tara said. "I struck a deal with the powers that be." "What deal?" "I'll explain on the way, but we need to hurry," Tara said, waving Dylan outside. "And please, no more shenanigans. I need you to be on your best behavior." "I'll do anything to get out of here," Dylan said, eyeing the guards. They let her pass with wary caution, their hands tightening around their gun stocks. It amused her, and a dry chuckle escaped her lips. "Dylan," Tara growled, "what did I just say?"
Yeah, I'll be good, I promise, Dylan replied, following Tara down the hall. A soldier walked ahead of them while two more brought up the rear. Together, they marched toward another cell block where they found Saul. He emerged from his room looking as fit as ever, his expression smooth and stress-free. It seemed his time in the slammer had been easier than hers. "I knew you'd get us out," he said, hugging Tara and clapping Dylan on the back. "I'm glad to see you both." "You might not be so happy once you hear what I have to say," Tara answered as they walked away. In low tones, she explained the deal she'd made with the Major. "We get to fight?" Dylan said with rising excitement. Despite the danger, she itched to see a little action. Anything to wipe away the boredom of the past few days. Saul was less than thrilled. "Do we get our guns back? How many infected are we expected to fight? Where is the attack taking place?" "I don't know," Tara admitted, "but it was the best I could do. The Major refused to let you go otherwise." Saul grunted, not looking at all happy about the situation. "What about Ethan?" Dylan asked. "He's sitting this one out," Tara said. "Good idea," Dylan replied. "He's probably the only one of us who hasn't killed a zombie yet." "Move it, people," the lead guard said, beckoning them to follow. They were rushed out of the cell block and emerged into the darkness of the night. Above their heads glowed a new moon and a thick carpet of stars. Lights were placed at strategic intervals to illuminate the way ahead, and a cold breeze ruffled their clothes. In the distance, the muffled sound of gunfire rang through the air. It lent a sense of urgency to their mission, and they all broke into an automatic jog. Dylan was in her element. It felt good to stretch her legs and get fresh air into her lungs. She could feel the oxygen rushing through her veins and pumping into her muscles. She was more than ready for a fight. She ached for it. Their prison, a nondescript brick square, faded from view as they ran toward another, equally bland-looking building ahead. Both featured barred windows set high up in the walls and a wash of beige paint. 2 soldiers guarded both. That must mean there's something to guard. Dylan slowed to a walk as they neared the entrance. "What's in there?" To her surprise, the soldier in front, their leader, answered in mild tones. "It's an armory. After the outbreak, we set up several small armories scattered throughout the base. That makes it easier for us to resupply in a hurry during an attack by the infected." "Who are you, if I may ask?" Dylan said. "Sergeant Dean," he replied before approaching the 2 soldiers at the door. "We're here for a pickup." "For the civilians?" one asked. "That's right." "Go ahead. Mac is expecting you." Inside, they encountered a small room cut in half by a wooden counter. On top of the bar lay an empty duffel bag and an array of weapons. Yet another soldier stood behind the counter, sorting through the various guns, knives, and ammunition on display. He looked up when they entered and nodded to Sergeant Dean. "Is this them?" "Yep. Is everything ready, Mac?" Sergeant Dean asked. "I think it's all there. Everything they brought with them in the Humvee," Mac said, waving his hands over the counter. "Help yourselves." "You heard him," Sergeant Dean said. "Gear up. We've got zombies to kill." Dylan wasted no time at all. She rushed forward and grabbed her machete, waving it around with glee. "This is more like it." After sliding the sheath onto her belt, she added a combat knife as a spare blade. Next came the Glock, still tucked into its shoulder holster along with its 4 loaded magazines. She checked the load, grateful to be armed once more. Lastly, she picked up her spear, giving it an experimental whirl that sent several soldiers ducking out of the way with cries of alarm. "Dylan," Tara said with a frown of disapproval. Dylan shrugged. "I wasn't even near them." While Tara and Saul collected their things, Dylan smoothed her hair back and tied it into a tight knot.
She left her jacket unzipped to allow access to the shoulder holster and made sure her skinny jeans were tucked into the top of her boots. She also removed her gloves and scarf, tossing it onto the counter. They'd only hamper her in a fight. Satisfied, she announced, "I'm good to go. Just show me the way." Tara and Saul signaled their readiness, and Sergeant Dean took the lead at a swift jog. They ran into the night and toward the fence, sporadically hitting pools of yellow light along the path. To Dylan, it felt surreal, like they were making their way through a giant disco, especially with the rising beat of gunfire in the background. That changed when they reached their destination. Suddenly, it all became real. A cacophony of sound enfolded her mind. Shots blasted into her eardrums, officers shouted commands, and the infected howled with never-ending hunger. Her stomach twisted into knots, and her adrenaline levels spiked as they neared the spot where the fighting was most concentrated. She stumbled to a halt and took a moment to assess the situation. It didn't take much to see that the base was in serious trouble. A line of soldiers fought along the security fences that flanked the Veterans Gate. A barricade reinforced the gate, and rolls of barbed wire glinted in the surrounding spotlights. A horde of zombies clawed at the barrier with eager fingers, not caring when they shredded their flesh on the wicked razors. On top of the barricade was a mounted .50-caliber machine gun operated by 2 men. A constant barrage of bullets streamed from its muzzle, cutting through the ranks of the undead. But even as she watched, it shuddered and died as it ran out of ammunition. Soldiers scrambled to take up the slack, forming a line of rifle fire several feet wide. Despite the hail of lead, the undead appeared unstoppable. When one fell, 2 more took its place. Even worse, the growing mound of bodies gave them a foothold, and they crawled over each other's corpses like ants. The first zombie reached the top and tumbled over. A bullet to the head took it down, but another one followed. And another, and another. They swarmed across the barricade and fell onto the nearest soldiers with predatory instincts. Screams filled the night, and blood soaked into the dusty earth as men lost their lives to tooth and claw. Dylan gaped at the scene with horrified fascination, flanked by Saul and Tara. Sergeant Dean and his 2 fellows threw themselves into the fight, not caring about their charges. Swallowing the fear that threatened to undo her, she glanced at Saul. "Ready?" He nodded. "We stick together, no matter what. Don't get separated. Got it?" Dylan nodded. "Got it." With a piercing cry, she gripped her spear with both hands and ran at the nearest cluster of zombies, flanked by her friends. An infected turned toward her, a snarl fixed onto its lips. 2 more joined it, while another crawled across the ground, its broken legs dragging in the sand. Tara blasted the crawler with her shotgun, while Saul picked off 2 more with his handgun. Dylan thrust the point of her spear through the crawler's eye, popping the eyeball and skewering the brain. Putrid liquid sprayed from the ruptured socket, and the corpse sagged in death. With 1 foot planted on its shoulder, she yanked her weapon free. Not pausing for a second, she whirled in a circle. The spear swept across the ground, taking the feed out from underneath another infected. She jammed the point through its throat, pinning it to the earth. The blade sliced through the neck vertebrae. Paralyzed from the neck down, the infected could do nothing but growl with insane fury. Another zombie came howling toward her, closing the distance with frightful speed. Dylan tried to pull out her spear, but it was buried too deeply to remove in a hurry. Abandoning the weapon, she pulled her machete from its sheath. With both hands wrapped around the handle, she slammed the edge down onto her attacker's skull. It cleaved through the bone and buried itself deep into the brain. A cry caught her attention, and Dylan looked up in time to see Sergeant Dean go down beneath the writhing bodies of 2 zombies. Yanking the machete free, she launched herself at the fallen soldier. With a powerful blow, she hacked into the nearest infected's neck. Its head flopped to the side, and she booted it in the ribs with a solid kick. It rolled away in a flurry of arms and legs, and she turned back to the sergeant. The second zombie had both hands buried in the...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?